Cover Your Eyes. Originally released in November of this year through first-time indie developer StarSkipp, is a game that, if anything else, boasts an extremely clear example of future potential. Although depicted through an art style that could easily lay claim to influence of the like of either Ib or Yume Nikki, or any other classic RPG Maker horror title, the crisp definition of the game's characters and environmental design offers Cover Your Eyes a somewhat more modernized identity. Whereas from a gameplay point of view, casually referring to the game as a 2D iteration of Resident Evil honestly doesn't stray all that far from the truth. Indeed, much of the game features a lot of your classic survival horror scavenging and resource management, whilst contending with a wide variety of monsters. And as for the main character's durability, this isn't Resi 6 Resi. You're dead within a few minutes, so saving as frequently as possible is highly recommended. As for the game's story, this is something that we will touch on a little more closely later, but the premise is simple. You're a mother protecting her children in a world that goes to hell. The developer also notes that much of the game is inspired by their own dysfunctional family, so expecting some less than pleasant story beats is a fair assumption here. Now, for the sake of transparency, I would like to clarify that the developer was in fact kind enough to send me a review copy for the game, and as such I was afforded the opportunity to play Cover Your Eyes a few weeks prior to the game's official release. I also would like to note that due to the game having only just released, I'm not going to be spoiling too much in regards to the story. So for now, let's jump right in with the overall gameplay. As already touched on, plenty of Cover Your Eyes is spent looting buildings and areas for any scrap of ammunition or health, and there honestly isn't a lot available to you. Going in guns blazing is tempting, but hardly viable. Within minutes you'll find that your entire ammo reserve is depleted, so knowing when to use the combat knife to pick off weaker enemies is key to success here. But as again already touched on, the main character's less than stellar damage resistance is an element to the game that is going to offer plenty of tension. It is extremely easy to miss your target and then immediately die as a result, so getting used to quickly sidestepping enemies before retaliating with the knife is a helpful strategy. As for the gunplay, the game utilises something of a combined 360 field of vision with a strict direction-focused field of attack. Or rather, although you can use your mouse to direct the main character's aim, you're only going to hit the enemy if they fall directly within the horizontal or vertical position of the player. Anything outside of these requirements, such as attempting diagonal attacks, are an absolute no-go, so learning this restriction is a must. Now, at first this did strike me as unnecessarily limiting, as the player's use of the far more flexible aim of the mouse pretty much guarantees the assumption of a 360 field of attack, similar to Crimson Land or any other top-down arena shooter. It might have actually been more straightforward to simply assign a fire prompt to the keyboard and eliminate the use of the mouse altogether, but you do get used to it, and within the first hour it really didn't bother me anymore. Instead, my attention was usually drawn to the wonderful variety of enemies that just kept on coming. I'm serious, as soon as you think you've seen all that the game has to offer, the developer chucks another one of these little fuckers at you, and you have to learn how to deal with it all over again. For example, what the hell is this?
It's me, dear friend.
As such, you run into all manner of weird concoctions that the developer has summoned from the Masahiro Ito-shaped hole in their lives, and while a lot of the monsters arguably lack finesse, it's still plenty of fun killing them. Touching on the game's environmental design, this is easily where some of Cover Your Eyes can feel a little tiresome. After the first few beats of the story, you begin to explore the odd surreal location or otherworldly area, and it was within these moments that I really fell in love with the game's art style. You literally swim through giant supernatural veins at one point. More of that would have been extremely welcome. But sadly, you do often find yourself instead keeping to corridors and roads and rooms, and while a lot of these locations are functional, there's a fair few recycled assets throughout them that maybe could have done with a little bit more work. In fact, it's actually somewhat ironic that these are so noticeable, seeing as it's directly due to the game's crystal clear presentation that I actually picked up on most of these. But this is a nitpick if anything, and I really loved the odd pop culture reference whenever they appeared. In one final look at the gameplay, Cover Your Eyes also does feature the odd puzzle that needs to be solved, and most of these are competently put together. I quite like the idea of the church chamber pressure plate puzzle. It's a little elaborate for a church to have implemented such a mechanism, but considering the many strange decisions of humanity peppered throughout history, I honestly wouldn't put it past them. And really, that's all I can say about the gameplay without getting into major spoilers, which I'm going to keep out of this review as already mentioned. I am going to zero in on the story just a little though, so if you don't want to know anything, go to here. Alrighty. So the story of Cover Your Eyes focuses on Chloe, the mother of Sally and Jake, and wife to Charlie. And I know what you're thinking, but Ghosts, you didn't say anything about Charlie earlier. No, I didn't. That's because he fucks off in the first 15 minutes of the plot. If you've seen the game's trailer, you know why. If you haven't, well, after some introductory establishing scenes of the town being overrun by monsters, one of Chloe's earliest decisions is to look for him at a hotel in the middle of the night after finding some rather suspicious text messages. That probably tells you all you need to know. So Chloe's first and foremost mission is to take care of Jake and Sally, and a fair few of these moments are what could be compared to escort missions, but it's to the credit of Cover Your Eyes that actually these don't feel at all like the agonizing teeth-pulling exercise of so many other escort missions. Jake and Sally stick to you like superglued flies on a trap, and if they get hit by a monster, it really only happens because you haven't reacted fast enough to get out of the way. If they'd behave similarly to, let's say, a Dead Rising escort mission, I probably would have deleted this game within 5 minutes. Fuck those missions. Anyway, inevitably you get separated from Jake and Sally, and I do have a problem with how Chloe basically allows this to happen, but at the same time it's a desperate situation and she's still trying to find Charlie without endangering the kids, so I can let it go. As a result, you do spend time looking for Jake and Sally and recovering them from harm, whilst also learning more about what caused the town to go to hell, which in a nutshell dips its toe into the cosmic horror thing, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Truth be told, I wasn't wowed by the game's story. It's serviceable and it gets the job done, but I was far more invested in Chloe herself. As a leading character, I really liked Chloe's capability. Her background includes police training, and with a strong protective instinct towards Jake and Sally, it's completely believable that she would go to extraordinary lengths to protect them, even to the point of pulling off her very own Matrix jump. So all in all, I like Cover Your Eyes. The monster variety and design makes for a lot of fun. Chloe as a main character does plenty to keep the player invested, especially in regards to keeping her children safe, and some of the horror elements of the game were really interesting to explore. I do wish that the game had leaned a little more heavily on the supernatural or surreal locations, and had been more invested in some of those more disgusting environmental designs, but as a first effort from a brand new developer, Cover Your Eyes has plenty to offer initially, and possibly more in the future. In fact, there is a ton of opportunity for expansion here, from additional locations, monsters, weapons, or whole new stories in future installments with the same character. I'd actually really love to see Chloe dropped into a nightmarish environment where she just has to doomslayer her way through a game. That would be a lot of fun. And Chloe's driving force always being to escape the nightmare to then eventually get back to her children would make for a protagonist that kept moving forward, no matter what she's faced with. Still, regardless of my wishful thinking for more hellish monstrosities, you should absolutely check out Cover Your Eyes. It's not perfect, but as an introductory effort to what the developer is capable of and could potentially release in the future, it's a genuine effort, one that's full of heart and care to make it the best they could. I can honestly say that I'm really interested in what comes next from StarSkipp, and I really want this game to be the launchpad that allows more from this developer. So go play this game!